Hey, yo, what's good, everybody, man? Welcome to another episode of Historically Black Sense, the premier digital platform for all things HBCU and D9 organizations. Today, man, I don't know where to start, man. I have a very, very special guest with me. This interview is, I guess, more close to me than a lot of them have been. And I appreciate everybody who I've interviewed, everyone who's come on. But I got my homie, man, today. And I'll tell you why it's a different interview for me. First of all, graduate of Alabama State University. You all know I went to Alabama State University. This man is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the Beta Oop chapter. As you can see, that's on his shirt right there. With the founder of Unite Inc., which is connecting high school students to HBCUs and HBCU students to opportunities, and none other than I guess we so close knitted, man. I'm gonna say the hometown still, my home county homie, man, Mr. T. Smith. What's going on with you, brother?
Man, listen, we go way back, like 4 flats on a Cadillac.
There you go, there you go, there you go, man. First and foremost, man, I appreciate you for taking the time out to come on the show today and to just spread some knowledge and some insight on, what you got going on in your career, man.
Listen, no, bro. I think before we get started, man, let me just give you your flowers. We both from the 12, you from Valley. Happy homecoming week to y'all. But
Appreciate
I
it.
think what you're doing is setting the stage. Like you're leaving a legacy that you don't even know. Like, man, how many actors we know come out of Chambers County? Like people looking at you in your modeling career and what you're doing in film and TV and now with the podcast. So I just want to give you your flowers right now because I'm so proud of you. Like we go way back when you was like dunking on us in high school, to Bama State.
Hey
to
man, I appreciate it, dog. I don't think nobody ever said that to me. A lot of people they say, "Hey man, I look at what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing," but they actually say, "Hey, look, I'm gonna go ahead and give you your flowers now," especially being from the same county. That mean a lot, bro. That mean a lot, a whole lot. And you got a lot going on as well, and that's why we here. We gonna get into it, man. We're gonna get into it. All right, so coming from Chambers County, we are both from Chambers County. This is gonna be more of a conversation than an interview, in my opinion. Uh,
yeah.
we from a small county, let alone small towns individual. Lafayette, you're from Lafayette, Alabama. We call it Lafayette. I'm gonna say Lafayette to the people who don't know. I'm from Valley, Alabama, and I will say that there's a lot of people who, unfortunately, they don't make it out of there. To do certain things because I feel like they don't see certain things and they're not presented with certain things. And I feel like they feel like that they're limited. So let's take it to T. Smith, Lafayette High School. Um, Leaving Lafayette High School, going to Alabama State University. I want to start off with asking, what made you go to Alabama State University out of all of the universities, whether it was HBCUs, PWIs, whatever the case may be? Why Alabama State University?
Man, that's a great question. And believe it or not, I knew I was going to Bama State in the 7th grade. And so our band director was a Mighty Marching Hornet. And we could march in a high school band in the 7th grade. And every year we went to Turkey Day Classic to the parade. And then there were a couple years we actually did the pregame show. And so being exposed to HBCU at an early age and seeing my band director come from HBCU, my principal, and then so many teachers. Like my high school at that time, we predominantly black, but I would probably say about 80% of our teachers came from Bama State, and so those are the people we were looking up to, even from middle school, because I was in a band in the middle school, and so like going down there, watching Bama State band play on the Capitol, it was always my dream to go to Bama State. Now I applied to a lot of other schools, but I knew in my heart, number one, I love black and gold. As you can see, my high school is black and gold, Bama State black and gold, Alpha's black and gold. Like I bleed black and gold. But just being exposed to that at an early age really cemented like I'm going to Bama State. And I did get accepted to a lot of other schools. I got a scholarship to other schools as well. But for me, when I stepped on campus at Bama State, I just felt at home. And my brother is like 3 years, 4 years older than me. And he also went to Bama State. So it was really like walking in his footsteps that he trailed. So he went to Bama State. He pledged Alpha. He pledged me in Alpha. So it was kind of like the path for me was a lot easier because I could see, him treading those steps, and it was easier to navigate. So I always give kudos to him for leading the way because he's the oldest. But Bama State was in my heart as early as the seventh grade. Like I knew I was going.
Dope. So, you mentioned how it was at at LaFelt. A lot of teachers from Alabama State. The band director was black, and you were a drum major at LaFelt, correct?
Yeah. Yep. My senior year.
Now, did that? Yeah. Now, did that have? Did you want to go to Alabama State? Did you want to be in the band at first?
I thought I wanted to be in a band. Like to me, there's a difference in like high school bands and college bands. Like high school bands, you can do it and it can be a hobby and you can think you love it, but in the college sector, you got to love it. So originally, I got an academic scholarship to go to Bama State. So it was full tuition and books. And then my band director talked me into trying out for the band. I got like a $500 band scholarship. But man, I ain't make it through pre-drill. I made it like Wednesday to lunch. And that my nigga, I was like, yo, these jokers love the band at a whole nother level. This ain't for me. Like I don't know. Like I felt like how it is. You're a freshman. You come from being a man, the drum major at your band, and then you go to being nothing, being yelled at. And mentally, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to be humble. I'm just being honest. I wasn't ready to be nothing or nobody again at Bama State. But I'm gonna be 100%. That was the best thing that ever happened to me. Like that was the most humbling experience. And yeah, I learned a lesson real soon that I'm only gonna pursue things that I'm truly passionate about, that I'm truly purpose driven for. And for me, I love music, but I don't love it that much to dedicate all day, all night to it. And so yeah, man, I went to practice that day. I went to the Cal, and them jokers didn't see me again.
Hey, no, it's funny, man, because I can relate. A lot of people, they'll see me and they just like, you play ball, you ain't play, you stop playing ball now. Little do a lot of people know. Some people know who, if they know, they know. I was out there trying. I was gonna walk on for Alabama State. This was the year they had a guy named. I either had a couple of transfers from Auburn. I missed conditioning that whole year. I mean that summer, not that whole year. I'm sorry. I missed conditioning that summer, and it's crazy. So I'm walking on practice. No, film. Film was at like 5 a.m. or something like that. Then we practiced. Then went to class. Then came back to practice that evening. I'm just like, man, look, am I really going to the NBA? Because I'm looking at it and I'm looking at the numbers and the statistics of the NBA, and I ask myself, did I love it that much? So I'm just like, maybe this ain't for me. Every 6'6" person is not in the NBA, so maybe I'm going to be one of them people. So I totally get what you're saying, and it's like you say, coming from, no matter if you played ball in high school and a band in high school, coming to college, you have to prove yourself all over again. So, it's definitely like starting over. So I totally understand exactly what you're saying. And coming from where we're from, it's like you can be known for being a basketball player. You can be known for being this amazing drum major. You got all the, the clout in the city and in the county, but then all of a sudden you get to this whole new melting pot of people who don't know you. Some of them, but in general, they don't know you. And it's like, oh man, I'm really starting over, and it can really be humbling, and it'll really push you to really want to do something to yourself, especially being around so many people who are doing things themselves. To push you to be like, nah, I'm not going to be this weak link. I'm going to make something out of myself. Like, I don't care what it takes me to prove myself. And that's something that you definitely did. First of all, everybody knew T. I will say that. So, as I recall, you held a pretty high position in the office at Alabama State.
That's what they tell me.
That's what they tell you. That's what they tell you. So I know, but for the people who don't know, get into it. Get into that a little bit for me, man, if you don't mind.
Yeah. It really goes back to me quitting the band. It was a blessing and a curse for me because, being in high school, I was always active in stuff, everything there was to do. And so when I quit the band, I had to make a decision. Like, how do I want to redefine myself? Like, what do I want my image to be on the campus of Bama State. And in my freshman year, man, I just jumped into student government and fell in
Mm,
love. And so one thing I've always been passionate about was helping others in leadership. And that was something that I was willing to do 24/7, to the point where, like, I think I was a full time employee as a student government official. And so I got into SGA. My sophomore year, I became chief justice. My junior year, I became was elected for SGA secretary, and then my senior year, I was elected SGA president. And that, honestly, man, I recall, and I'm writing a book about it now, but I recall
mm.
working like 50, 60 hours a week. I can't even remember going to class my senior year. That's how engaged I was in SGA. But it was all about helping the students, man. My goal was to walk away or walk across that stage in May with students being happy with their experience, and being able to solve problems, as every college have, but being able to help students. And so that's something that I really hung my hat on, really wanted to help students on the campus of Bama State.
And which is dope, man. You had a purpose with what you were trying to do instead of just doing it for a title, which is always a great thing. My question about that is, being a student of Alabama State at that time, when you first got in office as SGA president, was it ever a time when you feel like you bit off more than you can chew,
Every,
so to speak?
every
Because
day.
I know that has to be a crazy job, and with having that feeling, how did you come up with the endurance to just keep going and to say, hey, man, I'm going to keep striving, and, I can't quit. I'm in this position, and I just got to make it happen. How did you do that?
Yeah, man. Every day. Every day I was exhausted. Every day I made, in hindsight 2020, man, I regret making a lot of sacrifices. I sacrificed family time. I sacrificed friendships. I was consumed. I was in it like knee deep, to a point of no return, to a point to where when I left the position, I had to do some soul searching because it just became me. I became the position. But every day I wanted to quit, man. It was rough. I enjoyed it. I learned so many life lessons, but it's like pledging. You quit every night. You just come back the next day. And so you never, the end goal doesn't change. And I think that's the difference between me quitting the band and me not quitting this. I wasn't
Mm,
passionate, and it wasn't my purpose to be in a band. This was my purpose. Like, this was life for me. And so, like, every night that I went to sleep exhausted and tired, every morning I woke up the next day like super excited to go to meetings, super excited to meet with the board of trustees or the university president. Those are times where, at that particular time, President Harris was a time we were searching for a new
yeah.
president. And so it was like a lot of changes going on. I was able to sit on those search committees where we were interviewing presidential candidates. And so for me, it was more so like I'm taking a part in what the legacy of Alabama State will be 25, 50 years. And that's what kept me going, because I made a pledge to the students when, you all elected me, that I was going to always put you all first. And I wanted to make sure that you all were happy and satisfied at the end of the day, and at the expense of me, at the expense of my mental, physical, and spiritual health. And so I tell SJ presidents now that I train all over the country, the one thing that I regret is I sacrificed myself for the position, and I don't think you have to. I just didn't know
Mm,
any better, right? I don't think I had the type of guidance that would be like, hey, T, take a break, slow down, do this, take care of yourself first, or take care of, your family or whatever. And a lot of people don't know, like, my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis my
mm,
senior year, so my second semester as SGA president. And so I also used the presidency as an escape from actually, facing her diagnosis, which I should not have done. But again, you're dealing with trauma, and the only thing I know is to be busy and just to go, go, go. And so then when I graduated and it all just came to a halt, it was like, wow, you got to face reality. Like, you got these problems at home. What are you going to do after college? And so it was a tough time, man. But I think by the grace of God, I was able to get through it. I had a great group of friends too, and so my friends, they supported me. My frat brothers supported me as best as they could. I think people supported me as best as they could, but I don't know if anybody, like, intrinsically knew what I was going through. I
mm.
kept that shell, like, I kept it so close to me, that I put, like I would wake on. It like to me every day was Halloween. I would go to my dorm room, take my mask off, and just be like in misery. And then I would wake up the next day and put on this shell of an SJ president and solve people's problems. But I was broken myself. And so that's something, I'm very intentional when I talk about my presidency and when I work with SJ presidents. I'm very intentional to say, like, yo, in the words of Marshawn Lynch, you got to take care of your chickens first. And then everything else will kind of fall in place, because I've seen a lot of leaders graduate and be broken because that position, man, it's kind of like a fraternity. Like we have a group chat, we're all the SJ presidents, we're pretty close and we talk about it. You don't know what you get into until you actually dive into it. And we just can't explain it. But yeah, and so that was kind of like, that experience, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like if I could go back and do it again, I would definitely do it. Again, the lessons I learned, the skills I learned, I apply, to my life right now. So.
I never would have, it's crazy when people say they never would have guessed that you were going through whatever you were going through. But I mean, we would have no way of knowing unless, you just really opened up, or unless, we were talking every single day, which would be hard because you were the SGA president. So, I'm pretty sure you were busy. However, I will say in the midst of all that, you did a great, a hell of a job as the SGA president. And I'll say that, you know what I'm saying? It was more so, to me at first, it was like, hey, when Obama became the president of the United States, it's like, oh man, we got one of us in here now, so that was the first feeling of, when you became SGA president. The second feeling was like, it goes beyond just having one of us. It's like, I know this person, I know where he's from, and I know that he's going to do really what's in the best interest. And he's not just trying to hold a seat in office. He's not just trying to hold a title. And the SGA president, I mean, everything that you implemented, that you put in place, that trickles down to the whole SGA, the whole Student Government Association. So I commend you on, man, what you did. Even years later, I still commend you on what you did. So was SGA president, was that the hardest seat in Student Government Association that you held? Was it the most challenging? I don't like to say things are hard, but was it the most challenging?
Yeah, it was challenging because you take the fall for all things, even if it's not your fault. And I took the fall for a lot of things, but that's leadership though. Success rises and falls with the leader. And so, and then you also have to be all things to all people, right? At that time, I think we were right at 5,200 students on campus. And so it was good days and it was bad days. But it was challenging because you had to be at all places at all times. And so you were always getting pulled in various directions. People always wanted favors. So there were favors being asked from alumni. There were favors being asked for administrators, from board of trustees. Everybody had a favor. And so it was challenging because you had to navigate that. But also at this time, I'm 21 years old. Like I'm a young man and I'm trying to figure out like manhood. I'm trying to figure out like it's so much going on. I'm also a neo. And so I'm wild. I just crossed. I crossed the week before I won the election. And so
I recall.
it's like it's a lot happening. Like I don't get to live the true neo life. I can't get out here and wild because I'm the SGA president. And so it was challenging in those aspects. And thinking about at the end of the day, you're responsible. I think SGA, we had about 70 members. And so technically you're supervising about 70 people unofficially. Directly, you're supervising about 25. And then you're also a student. I was a biology major. And so I'm still taking 16 hours in the life sciences building. And so it was just, it was a lot. Like physics, that semester kicked my butt. And then I had to take biochemistry. And you missing classes for meetings. And so it was just it was definitely challenging in that aspect. I would say as SJ secretary, I didn't have to miss a lot of class. And I can always hide under the fact like I'm not the president. You can't say that when you're the president. Like people want a decision. They want to hear from you. And there are certain meetings you can't send representatives to. Like they want you. We want to talk to the SGA president. But also too, I set myself up for that, which I don't mind. But I was a people's person. And I wasn't gonna hide behind the desk So what that did was it made me available to all students. And so with that
Mm.
availability, with that openness, you're available. Everybody had my cell phone number. I'm kicking it outside all the time. And so when people see you, they see, oh, I can bring my problems to you, even if we're at the club. Like I remember having conversations at the Rose all the time with students about problems. And I'm sitting here with a blue MF in my hand, like, man, I just want a chicken plate, yo. But I vowed to be that person. That's what I campaigned on. And so I'm gonna be that person if you need me in the roles. And so I always used to kind of like take my phone, have my phone with me, write notes like, that student got an issue. I need to see about it in the morning, even though it's 2 a.m. I got to get up and go see what this student need. Because a drunk heart speaks a sober mind. And so you can only
That is
imagine
true.
what the students will say to you while you're at the roles. So yeah.
Man, it's definitely something for everybody. I would have been out of there. You talking about coming up to me at the Rose. You can come up to me in class, in the cab, at the basketball game, anywhere except the Rose. Don't bother me at the Rose. Like, just don't do it. Nah, that's crazy. But yeah, that's definitely a responsibility that I think is really only cut out for certain people. And you were definitely cut out for it. And you said something that I want to get into, biology. What made you choose a biology major?
Yeah, man, I love science. Science is my favorite subject. And so, funny story, me and my brothers used to like play doctor or play pastor or play business owner or play teacher when we were growing up. And so I always knew that I was going to be a doctor. And when it came time for me to like declare a major, you're a high school senior, and everybody was like, what you gonna major in? I didn't know. I just was like, I love science. And so let me go be a biology major. And my thoughts were, I'm gonna go do physical therapy because Bama State got a really good physical therapy program. So if I can just go do biology and then do physical therapy, life would be great. But then I got an SGA and I realized like higher education, student affairs is a whole field out here. And so in my
Mm-hmm.
mind as a 21-year-old, when I became SGA president and I started sitting on those presidential search committee meetings, and I was literally looking at these people resumes, these candidates. They were like 25, 30, 40-page resumes. And I was like, wow, like you could be a university president. I could be an HJ president for the rest of my life, technically, if I'm a university president. And so that's kind of how I shifted. I wish I would have listened to my senior year and went straight into education. But the reason I got into biology really just because I love science and it was natural to me, like being observing things, looking at nature. I just loved it. Animals, the body. My favorite subject is anatomy. I love to know how the body works, the body parts, anatomy, physiology, and so that was really honestly why I got into biology.
Yeah, that's dope, man. You when you ask a question like that, you never know what a person's answer is gonna be. It's like biology major. People they probably would not guess you to say that you're a biology major. That you were a biology major at all. Like this dude, and I know he ain't a biology major, but that's an interesting story because I didn't know that. I didn't know why you probably would have chose that. I never would have thought that you wanted to take that path at all. So you just definitely taught me something. So that's definitely a dope fact. So all right, I'm gonna switch gears real quick. Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Um, and I ask this question all the time. And when I started asking it, I'm like, man, this is a very cliche question. I feel like I'm gonna get a cliche answer. However, I don't. So I'm gonna ask you: did you choose Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, or the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated choose you?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think when I started looking into fraternities, the very first thing I looked at was strolling. I'm gonna be a book. I'm gonna keep it a book 100.
Yeah,
I was like, man,
I think most people see that first.
who? I'm looking at I don't know. I'm like, man, I was introduced to Kappas first in high school, so that's all I knew. Then I got to Bama State, and I seen the Alphas. I'm like, oh man, these brothers dope. And then I was like, whoa, y'all wear suits throughout the week, but then y'all like go to parties and be dope. And so, oh, it's okay to be like smart and fly. Like, oh, I like that mix, you know, because I consider myself a nerd. So I was like, oh, this is dope. So then when I started looking, I was like, man, Martin Luther King, the Alpha, Thurgood Marshall. I'm looking at these people, these notable people, and I'm like, man, like they subscribe to the same thing I subscribe to. But I honestly think for me, it was more so of a local chapter. Like for Beta Oot was just dope. And so then my freshman year too, my brother crossed the spring of my freshman year, and I think that's what kind of cemented it for me. When I was seeing him, and I met all of his line brothers, his sayings during that time, and so that, and then the icing on the cake was they were already black and gold, which was like some of my favorite colors. And so after my brother crossed, and then yeah, it was it was on. Now I will say there were two fraternities that were actively recruiting me because by this time, my sophomore year, I'm in student government hard, and fraternities they looking for leaders, right? They're looking for campus leaders, and so I had two fraternities that were actively, but not it ain't public, but brothers coming up to you like, hey man, what you trying to do? Like we'd love to have somebody like you, one off. But in my mind, I already knew um, it was gonna be Alpha. I was just hoping they was gonna choose me, but I also wanted them to choose me not because of my brother. And so then I
Mm.
recall a conversation. I got kind of like pulled into a little conversation. It was a lot of them, and it was one of me. And I'll never forget. It was like, all right, little T, like we see what you're doing, blah blah blah. You exhibit the qualities of Alpha. You trying to be down, and I was like, I don't know if this is a trick question, like y'all trying to get me, or what, what's up? And I was like, yeah, I'm trying to be down for real. Like I'm coming. I'm trying to be down. They was like, all right, cool. Be on the lookout. You know how they do. Be on the lookout for your flyers. They're gonna get snatched down, but here go the date, here go the time. We'll see if you for real if you show up. And so I think it was more of a mutual at this point. I want to be down, but then also kind of like a little tug, like, hey man, because and crazy story, my brother never asked. He never asked if I was gonna do it. And so it was
Mm.
in that conversation, it was like three of his line brothers that actually kind of cornered me and was like, "What's up? We see what you're doing, what you're trying to do."
I think that's dope though that your brother never asked. But he knew he had to know. If three of his line brother said something, he knew. He just didn't say nothing because he knew they was gonna ask you anyway. But
Yeah,
that's definitely dope, man. Yeah, and definitely shout out to Alpha Phi Alpha, Fraternity Incorporated, and shout out to Beta Oot, man. I got a lot of homies, man, who Beta Oot. So shout out to y'all. Um, what's one of the biggest things that you feel that being a I want to get more intimate. I want to say Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, but being a brother in that organization, but being a part of the Beta Oop chapter. What's one of the main things that you learned being a part of it or becoming a part of it, a member of it?
yeah, brotherhood. I tell my students this all the time. I mean, my mind. These are the things that do not shine. We us all together. These are the things that last forever. And so, as a brotherhood, and Beta Oop kind of known as like we call ourselves the hospitality chapter. And so, any alpha know this: when you step foot on the campus of Bama State, we gonna take care of you. Now we gonna if an alpha is on the campus, we gonna send the group to go see what's going on. Especially if you ain't called, we need to know who you is, and we
Yeah.
need to make sure you're good. But when we do make sure you're good and that you a real alpha, we're gonna take care of you. So you ain't never got to worry about nothing. But that kind of showed me what service is, right? The beginning level of service. And so being in Beta Oop, the biggest thing I would say, man, is our brotherhood is pretty tight, man. Like we've gone through a lot. And if a brother put out a call, everybody might not be able to answer at that particular time, but it's gonna get taken care of. We had a brother, a very notable brother who passed away last year, but he had children. And so we were able to come together. In his line, he was the DP, he was the dean of two lines. And that's not heard of, like 91 and 92 or 90 and 91. But the brotherhood came together and we raised, man, over $10,000 just to give to a scholarship to his children. But it's like small stuff like that to where we learn to take care of the yard. Like for us, like we were brought into the frat. Alpha Week is not about the alphas. It's about giving back to the yard. And so that's why we always do those events during Alpha Week, and like the party be free during Alpha Week, because it's like you all have supported us throughout our whole time here, throughout the whole year. Like, you paid for parties. That's why we, buy the monkeys and give away. We used to do the massage nights, and now they bring people in. So it's like our way of giving back to the campus. And so that's one thing that has really stuck with me is when you're a part of a brotherhood, it's always for the best interest of the brother, and no one person is above the brotherhood. And that means there's gonna be some good times, there's gonna be some bad times, and some people gonna have to get checked sometime for egos, and people gonna have to get checked for doing stuff that goes against the interest of the brotherhood. But at the end of the day, our saying is, you don't run the oop runs you. And so that really just means like, hey, we all one, and we gonna run together. And the day you decide that you're above the brotherhood, or you're gonna be on some Hollywood, I need my mind type of stuff, then you're gonna get exiled from the brotherhood, and that's okay. Uh, but it's all about us, and I think for me, I take that into my community work. I do a lot of community work, and so I'm always thinking about, especially like right now, your high school, my high school, on the verge of merging to one high school, and so
Yeah.
how do we come together and we really take, like, Valley has its own identity, Lafayette has its own identity, two separate schools, very rich tradition, but now it has to be we us all together. And so how are we going to come together and put our selfish interests aside for the betterment of Chambers County, which is about to be the new high school? And so I'm just thinking, like, that's what I learned in the frat, and now I'm trying to show that in the community work, show that in the, I teach at Auburn, and I get a lot of black students, and well, it's less than 5% black students at Auburn, and so I'm teaching my black students, like, hey, no matter where you come from, if you came from an HBCU, if you came from another PWI, if you're a black graduate student, we got to stick together. It's us. Our agenda has to be together, and it has to be uniform. And so that's kind of like how something I learned from Beta Oop that goes into real life action.
All of that you said, man, is real. That's definitely real. And I respect it to the utmost. Which is some great lessons learned. And then you did mention something about the schools merging and different things like that. So hey, we might have to go down there and talk to them people, man, to make sure everybody is on the same page. Because it's gonna start from the adults down, man. But that's another story. But all right, let me get into this real quick, because I do still want to be respectful of your time. Unite Inc. Once again, I'm going to say it again: connecting high school students to HBCUs and HBCU students to opportunities. How did that come about? How did you become the founder of that? What made you start that? I love what it says. I love it. So, what did that come about?
Yeah, man. I remember it vividly. In 2011, I was SJ president, and we were at this HBCU leadership conference, NASAP, and so they did like a session only for SJ presidents, and we were all sitting around. It was about 50 of us, SJ presidents, HBCU SJ presidents, and we were sitting around talking about problems that we had on campus. And one common theme was the retention rate for Black men on the college campus. And I was like, wow, I came in with 4 people and only 1 people. Eugene was my suite mate. And I was like, me and Eugene, the only people here from our group from MLK freshman year. And so we got an issue. So I was like, what can I do? I'm a solutions driven person. Anybody can see a problem, but what are you going to do about it? I immediately got back to campus and was like, I want to get a group of students just to mentor. Like, if I can get a group of freshmen, now that I'm a senior, if I can get them, a group of freshman men particularly, and just tell them everything I know, how to navigate Bama State, how I became successful, how to get internships, all of that. And it just happened. And the reason I named it Unite is because my freshman year, the group that ran for the group that ran for SGA, they all ran on one ticket from Miss ASU down, and it was called Unite, You and I Together Excel. So I reached out to them and was like, hey man, can I have y'all name? It was a campaign name. Can I have it? Because y'all introduced me to SGA. They was like, sure, because I liked the You and I Together Excel. And so from there, it became a mentoring organization at Bama State, where freshmen come in, we mentor freshmen. That next year, they become sophomores, they become the mentors, and then you mentor a freshman. And then in 4 years, you got yourself a mentoring group. And it worked perfectly. I think we got up to like 80 students at one time. And then I was in Lafayette at the graduation in 2014, and I realized there was a need. And so I was like, hey, where there's a need, there's an answer. You mentioned this earlier. A lot of students don't get out, and so I wanted to help students get access to college. Like, let's talk about college, and so that's how we started the high school chapter, when we were just basically saying, hey, we're gonna meet once a month. We're gonna talk about college admissions, ACT, help y'all with ACT prep, all of that stuff, college applications, and then boom, that blew up. And we've been going on taking students during that spring break on HBCU college tours. And then I got other colleges that started reaching out. Was like, how can we duplicate your chapter on our chapter? I didn't want Unite to become like another fraternity where we have different chapters.
Yeah.
So I decided to kind of revamp our structure in 2019 to just be kind of like a organization that is going to serve HBCUs across the nation. And so that's when we started doing the summer virtual conference with HBCU student leaders. And so in 2020, we launched our 3-day virtual summit. It's free to students. The first day is student empowerment. The second day is student leadership training. And the third day is career opportunities. And like the first year, we registered 352 students. The next year, we registered 900 students. And the next year, we registered 1,000 students. And we had over 66 HBCUs represented. And so then we became kind of like this national HBCU organization where now companies come to us and say, hey, we want to do partnerships with HBCUs. Can you all help us get access to HBCUs? And so what we do is we vet companies to make sure their intentions are pure. And then we kind of help them navigate the partnerships with internships and job hirings and all of that. And now our high school chapter, which started in Lafayette and Valley, we now serve Lafayette Valley, Lynette, Opelika, and Auburn high schools. And so we're continuing to grow. And so that's kind of how that model is. We do connect high school students to HBCUs, and now we're connecting HBCU students across the nation to different types of opportunities, research opportunities, graduate school, law school, medical school, jobs, you name it. And so like we were able to even just bring money back to HBCUs. So there are a lot of companies. Like last year, we did partnerships with Tennessee State, Jackson State, and Alabama State with their marching bands. And so we had a company that wanted to do kind of like a mask campaign to just say like, hey, we want everybody to mask up. So they were able to, each band would receive masks to wear, and they were able to get a donation to their band just to wear those masks. And so those are like the type of financial contributions we're able to kind of negotiate and broker on behalf of HBCUs. And so our model, I tell students all the time in companies, wherever there's a niche regarding HBCUs, we want to be there to partner to help solve the problem, because I believe HBCUs, even though I went to Bama State, I love all 100 plus HBCUs, even the community colleges that we don't talk about. And so like there are a lot of community colleges that are HBCUs and they don't get no love. And so we're always, focused or trying to work on ways that we can provide experiences and opportunities to our students directly from high schools to HBCUs and beyond.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Like I stated earlier, a lot of people, when you're coming up in high school, if your mind is on college at all, a lot of times when we think back to being so young, it's like, man, we gonna go to class, we gonna have this little fun, date a little bit, whatever, go to this football game on Friday, yada yada. But at the end of the day, your high school career will be over with before you know it. And something has to come next. However, a lot of people, they leave high school and they're stuck. And it's like, all right, what do I do now? And they aren't exposed to a lot. And if they are exposed to something, they are exposed to, I'm just going to say this for instance. I mean, this is not one, it can be HBCUs as well, but generally speaking, they're exposed to Alabama, Auburn, something like that. They don't, and you start thinking about that, and then you start looking into it. That can be so overwhelming sometimes for a high school, a high school student, where they don't know as to like, hey, you can. And then a lot of people feed stuff in their ears, but they don't know that HBCUs have a hell of a value. Just as Auburn, just as Alabama, just as Florida State, just as whatever, you can learn the same thing. You can get the same exact material, and you can get more, in my opinion, because there's a whole lot that I learned at Alabama State University that I feel I never would have learned at one of the other schools, the PWI, whatever the case may be. So I think that's a great thing that you are connecting high school students and you're just giving them the tools and the mindset and saying, hey, like, look, this is available for you. Let me teach you about this. Let me teach you about, finances of going to college and different things of that nature. I think that's great because it's something that we are lacking, which is, I feel like right now is a great time for HBCU because I feel like
Oh,
now all of
100%.
that awareness, including what you're doing, you're a part of that. I feel like the awareness right now is not at an all-time high yet, but it's getting there. It's growing so much. I'm seeing it everywhere. Even when you go into sports, we're on ESPN now. You're on ESPN. It's just a movement for it. You're seeing sweaters everywhere. People starting to wear D9 organization stuff on TV again. It's just it's a lot and it's growing. And I feel like all of that starts with things like you're doing. It's sparking that flame and showing students like, hey, this is here. And then, like you said, connecting HBCUs to opportunities. Why not grow? Why not spread? Why not connect?
Yeah.
So I definitely admire what you're doing, man. And I think that's definitely that's a great program that you have going on. And anytime that you need me, man, hey, hit me up. I'm there.
Listen, I got to get you back, man. I'll say this: we got to make our children grow up hating themselves. Anti-blackness is a real thing, and
Yeah.
so like our children grow up hating their hair because people tell them their hair nappy. They hate their skin tone. Like we're as black people, we are conditioned to hate ourselves, and that dates back to slavery because it hasn't always been the case. And so one thing that we pride ourselves on in Unite is we tell students go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. And we don't push any students to HBCUs. We just want you to know that they're there, and we want you to know that they're going to take care of you. And so, two words that come to mind when I think about HBCUs is care and community, and they're very strong. And so, I hear all the time. I taught high school for 3 years, and so students would tell me, "Well, I need to go where there's diversity." Or I need to go where I know I'm gonna get an education. Well, what are you saying about black education? Like, what are you implying, right?
Exactly.
What do you hear white people say? I need to go where it's diverse. You never hear that. You don't hear that. But why do we as black people think that we have to go where it's diverse? And so it's important that we continue to spread the narrative of HBCUs. Our HBCUs competing, not just with HBCUs, but they're competing with schools across the country. Like we beyond this idea of just competing with HBCUs. We beyond this idea of we are second or less than. No, we're gonna compete with your Alabamas, with your Auburns, and whatever it may be. And so you look at education, you look at music, you look at all the engineering. Like we got top notch. And so I'm just asking people to open your eyes. I'm just asking people to recognize anti-blackness. It's the same with black businesses. You go to a black business, they have bad service, and you're like, I'm never coming back. But you can go to white businesses and they have bad service and you just chop it up. Like, why do we do ourselves that way? And so I want us to be cognizant that HBCUs are relevant. Like people, I got asked this question the other day, like, is 2022 are HBCUs still relevant? You know what my answer was? It's 2022. Are predominantly white institutions still relevant? Like, why are those
Absolutely.
institutions segregated? We don't have to close HBCUs to go to predominantly white institutions. And so, we just need to have those conversations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And once again, that's why I'm glad that you're bringing that awareness, even like you stated, to the community colleges that may not get as much light. And this is about you, but I will say that's another reason that we're on this platform as well, because historically black sense, the whole platform that I'm doing this interview on right now, we post about all HBCUs to create awareness in some type of way. It's all about us doing our part some type of way. And I appreciate you and your organization for doing your part. Definitely. I commend that. So we definitely have to keep that going. So I got like one question on the light note, and we're gonna get up out of here. When you got finished with Alpha, I'm gonna say that. We're gonna say cross seal. When you got finished, how did you feel when they cut your hair?
Listen, I was sick as a dog, man. Like I worked hard for those locks for 5 years, and then I'm looking at my little bean head, like, man. And then I was never the person to have waves. I really, honestly, I should have been like, y'all, I don't cross these sands. Y'all ain't come out here. Like, but in my mind, I'm like, bro, I'm still online. I'm like, yeah, we got to do it, bro.
Yeah.
I want you to know they had a field day cutting them locks. And there are pictures where like they had half of my head shaved, the other half not. Bro, it was patchy before they like skinned this ball. So I was sick, man. My head hadn't seen the day of light since high school.
Man, and I know that's what made me want to ask that. I know how it feels. Boy, I got the locks. I know. I was like, man, when they cut my dog hair back then, I said, boy, they cut my dog hair. That's crazy. But yeah, man, I definitely wanted to end on that light note, man. But so if you had to tell anyone who's on the fence about going to a HBCU or PWI or anything that you would leave the audience with, as far as HBCUs are concerned, what would you leave them with?
Go to a place that's going to teach you how to love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be my biggest thing. Like, we think we love ourselves, and one thing Alabama State taught me is how to be unapologetically Black and to honor my Blackness. In my language, I use language as a form of resistance, even as a professor now. Like, I'm not in front of the class all trying to talk proper. Like, what is talking proper? No, my dialect is my dialect, and you're going to take it or leave it. And so Alabama State taught me how to stand strong in my confidence as a Black man, and how to be unapologetically Black. And so you really need to go to a place that's going to nurture you and really uncondition your mind of the 12 years of education or whiteness that you've received in K through 12. And so that would be my biggest advice. Go where you celebrate it, not tolerate it.
Dope. That sums it up, man. I definitely appreciate you for taking the time out again, bro, and just sitting here and chopping it up with us, leaving us with some valuable information, dropping jewels and gems. And I'm pretty sure that the audience will take a whole lot away from this interview, man. So I appreciate you. Come sit down anytime, my guy. Anytime, man. I appreciate it, man. We'll be talking next time.
Peace out.
All right, people. Y'all have tuned in to another episode of Historically Black Sense, the premier digital platform for all things HBCU and D9, man. We out.